housekeeping, please do go ahead and make sure you're on mute if you haven't already, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Thank you. Good morning. Hello, everybody, or good afternoon, depending which coast you are dialing in from. This is Jamie Tharp from Bronto Software, and on behalf of BVXL and Bronto Software, welcome to our webinar this morning, Optimizing Your Email, the Strategy and Tactics to be Successful. So I'd like to introduce our speakers this morning. From Bronto Software, we've got Greg Zakowicz. Greg Zakowicz is a senior commerce marketing analyst at Bronto Software. Bronto is a leading cloud-based commerce marketing automation platform provider. Greg has more than 12 years of experience in email, mobile, and social media marketing, and he really knows the retail industry. His subject matter expertise stems from his experience providing commerce marketers, including numerous internet retailer top 1,000 clients, with in-depth analysis of their marketing programs, recommendations for improvement, best practice support, and implementation guidance and execution. Also, from Brand Value Accelerator, welcome Mariel Bacci. Mariel is the Senior Conversion Rate Optimization Specialist at BVXL. With a psychology-driven approach to researching markets, developing strategies, and measuring marketing and advertising effectiveness, Mariel produces on-site quantifiable results that increase sales, reputation, page rank, and leads, while all reducing operating. She has worked with big brands like Proactive, Target, Joss & Main, Tennis Warehouse, Milk-Bone, Hallmark, and more. So a few housekeeping rules that I want to cover today. First off, this webinar is being recorded, so never fear if you're a few minutes late. or if you want to review the content later. We will be providing a copy of all of these slides and the audio to everyone following the webinar. Please feel free to go ahead and enter your questions in the GoToMeeting chat box. We'll be reviewing them during the webinar. We're not going to address them actively during the webinar, but at the end of the webinar, there will be some time reserved for question and answers. So feel free to enter those in. And if for some reason we don't get to answering your specific question, the two speakers will be in contact with you via email, but we should have good time to address most of the questions. And then finally, we'd love to hear from you on social media. Our Twitter handles are @BVExcel and @Bronto, respectively. So please do give us a shout, send your comments, your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today on optimizing email, we will be covering first off why personalization. Then we'll be looking at specific strategies for email personalization, and finally BVExcel will dive into effective email design and execution tactics. So with that, I am going to hand over our slides today to our first speaker, Greg from Bronto.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks everyone for being here. It's good afternoon for me. I'm over on the East Coast in Durham, North Carolina, and I'm super excited that not only you guys are here, but I get to work with Marielle again, because if you don't know her, she is a truly awesome person. So really excited. What we're going to talk about today in my portion, this very beginning section, is we all know personalization is important, but how important is it and why is it so important? So I'm going to set the groundwork for why that is the case. And then we'll talk about some specific strategies with product recommendations into some different messaging. And of course, wrap up with some pitfalls of using product recommendations and personalization tactics in email before turning it over to Marielle, who is going to show you how to be spot on with your aesthetic design and some strategies associated with some of these messages. So let's jump right in as to why personalization is so important with consumers. And fact is, it is important because consumers expect it. And we're going to hear somewhere. So consumers expect it, right? Retailers have been trying to personalize messaging to consumers since day one, right? That's marketing 101. Problem is, nowadays we have so many different things emerging: social media, mobile phone usage. An average consumer checks their mobile phone 150 times a day. For retailers, it's great. It means you have up to 150 times a day to be in front of your brand. Challenge comes in, well, so too does any retailer on the face of the earth. They can also be in front of your consumers, so attention spans are fighting. But as consumers integrate social into marketing platforms and things like that, they start giving up more data. And consumers today, more so than a couple of years ago, are used to giving up data. They just expect things on the other side that if they're going to provide something, they expect it to be used. So from a recent study, we see these things here about what consumers expect to make emails more relevant from the retailer side. And I draw your attention to the three arrows because the second one, the purchases that made on the website, that's kind of a no-brainer. It's expected nowadays. If I make a purchase with a brand, I expect them to use that purchase behavior and that purchase data to target me with, from an email perspective, that much better. The middle one there, 62%, what I looked at on the website a couple of years ago, there is no way 62% was this number. It's probably in the 20, 30% range. It's becoming more accepted that if I'm on a website browsing, I expect them to be tracking that data. And this is why you're seeing the emergence of things like browser behavior messaging, which both myself and Marielle will talk about today. Great revenue driving message for you, but people are expecting these things, and it really hones in on retailer challenges of staffing and things like that nowadays. And the bottom one we're not going to talk about, but I set it there for perspective. 40% of consumers expect purchases made offline to be used to make emails more relevant. Now, most companies do not have the capability to do that. That's kind of that big data omni-channel picture you keep hearing about, but it's coming. People are expecting it. So if you can't get some of the basics right, you're going to be in a really long uphill battle in a couple of years once those data sets start coming to fruition. So that's why it's so important. Now, how are retailers providing consumers with what they want? The fact is they're not doing it very well, right? We see that consistently 15% of emails are useful for consumers, and consistently nearly 60% of emails are not useful for consumers. So there is this huge wide gap from what consumers expect and what retailers deliver. From a marketing standpoint, This is a challenge for you because you want to be more relevant with your consumers, but it also presents this great opportunity for you. If you know your competitors aren't there or are slowly getting there, it gives you this opportunity to get a leg up and be more relevant with your consumers at that point. So this brings us into why it's so important. Yeah, Greg, we know it's important. The stats are great. That's all great. Why is it important? Well, think about this example here. We have two stores that sell the same widget, say a pair of shoes, pair of sweater, whatever it might be. If those stores are offering a similar or exact same price with the same value adds, shipping, return policies, which store does the consumer buy from? You're not providing any motivation to shop with you and not them, and they might not be doing the same either. So you leave it up to chance. Chance is not a good way to secure customer loyalty. It's not a good way to motivate purchases or to overcome objections to or obstacles to purchases as well. So this is why personalization is important. We want to motivate consumers to engage with us and to purchase from us. So this brings me into how do we do that from a marketing perspective? Because we certainly live in a batch and blast world nowadays for a lot of reasons. Retailers usually have one or two people, and everyone on the line today probably has one or two people in their marketing department handling email and one or two design people handling the graphics for the email. And sorry, I'm just having some issues moving slides here, so if someone could help me out, that would be wonderful. So I mentioned we live in a batch and blast world, and here's an example from the Gap, right? You have limited resources. As a retailer, you can probably spend the next 2 hours and create 100 different segments, but executing upon those 100 segments is next to impossible. You just can't do it effectively unless you have a huge team. So this is where the challenge comes in, and this is why most people send batch and blast messages. The problem with that is you don't really engage a user. You train the user to think, hey, I'll just wait for a sale or wait for something that's relevant for me, and then I'll check in on it. So we see this example from the Gap here, which is just a batch and blast message. I can guarantee you with 7 different email addresses signed up, everyone, regardless if they manage your preference, got the same email. The difference here is that as a male consumer who told them I'm a male demographic, I get this female-driven message. Now, a batch and blast strategy would be they're going to get this message anyways, but it's immediately more relevant to me, even if I'm not shopping for my wife or my significant other. I see these recommendations down here for male-driven products. So you can take a very simple batch and blast strategy and then execute it on over to your general population and make some of those messages a little more relevant for them. So consumers expect personalization. It's a very easy way to have intuitive product recommendations into just your general batch and blast strategy, but make those messages more effective. These results you see on the screen here are not Gap specific results, but they are from a client who just did some split testing with recommendations and not recommendations. And you can see the drastic improvement made from not only from a click rate side, but from a revenue side. And that really shows the importance of being able to target that consumer specifically. So if we can move to the next slide here. Browse recovery, I roped the browse recovery into the same area as promotional messages because really it's an automated message, but it's really disguised as a promotional message. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. Difference here is the user goes to the website, they browse some products, they never cart anything, and they leave. You have enough data there, whether it's the first visit or multiple visits, and Mariel's going to talk to you about some of the strategies here, so I'm going to leave that for her, to trigger off a message that looks promotional in most cases, but recommends specific products. So the JCPenney example on the left, you can see I'm actually searching for a train set or train tracks. I forget which one last Christmas to put up for Christmas Day so my kids can run downstairs. And I have this relevant product recommendations and a relevant message there. Now Lowe's this spring, I'm looking pricing out mulch to mulch my yard. And I'm going to just compare with the major stores here. So I get something that looks very much like a promotional message with some product recommendations on there. If I'm not shopping for mulch, you could see this message coming through to me as a Lowe's subscriber any day of the week. But it's extremely relevant to me, but it's also recommending specific products around not only the price point, but the brand of mulch I'm looking for. So really relevant example from a browser-based standpoint here. So it's a way to disguise promotional messaging into some of these product recommendation tactics here. Now, say I get you all the way through to actually cart a product. Abandoned cart messages are likely the most profitable messages you're sending from your email campaign. They're by nature relevant because someone has self-identified a specific product for them. and put it into the cart and then left. Now, the problem, and it's not a problem, but the challenge with using product recommendations, they can certainly enhance shopping cart abandonment messages, but you need to, and this is really true with anything, you need to determine if those recommendations are a value add to the message and for the consumer, or they're just a distraction to the consumer. And I'll show you examples of both of those here, but from an abandoned cart standpoint, we all know what these messages look like. And next slide, please. So here's just a couple examples of basic abandoned cart messaging, right? Hey, you left something in your cart, come back, shop with us again, and you're pretty used to the format here. You can look at the same messages with product recommendations in there. So we see something that's relevant to the consumer, the PacSun side. I've got a female top I abandoned. I get recommendations for other female tops. So here's a good chance to not only get me back to my cart, but also maybe upsell similar type products. The watch is the same thing. Now, I've self-identified a watch. Maybe I'm further down the funnel than choosing a different style, but you also have those. And I really want to focus on the third example here to the right, because that is not a, hey, you left this specific product in your cart. It's a hero branded, it's a brand image here that's saying, hey, you left something in your cart, but we're focusing on the brand imagery here. Now, this is where the recommendations come in, because the recommendations are fed to me based on something I actually left in my cart. I left a dress shirt in the cart. So I didn't leave shoes, I didn't leave pants, I didn't leave sport coats. The recommendations show me not only a dress shirt, but a dress tie combo and some individual ties. So it really grabbed my attention that I've got this pretty nice looking image that reinforces the brand, but also have these very specific things that said, yes, I was shopping for something. Oh, that tie is kind of nice there. So it's a really good tactic there. And if you look at two messages side by side, you can see they're both branded graphic, but the one on the right engages me a little bit more because that's a value add. It's not a distraction for me. And I'll show you some examples of distractions in just a minute, but it's a really good tactic to go ahead and use for shopping cart abandonment. Now, does it work? Well, from a shopping cart, I would say yes. And if we can move to the next slide, please. So here are two examples of shopping cart abandonment with and without recommendations from the same client going side by side here. And you can see the drastic improvements with the ones with recommendations. So we take a naturally relevant, high performing message for us and say, hey, we can do better than that. And look at the conversion rates and the revenue per email, drastically better. And this is just revenue on top of what they were seeing anyways from a high conversion rate. So really good job done here by Paul Frederick on the abandoned cart side. Yep, next slide, please. And if we get you to convert now from the abandoned cart side and we see transactional messages, these are generally utilitarian in nature. Slide. So transactional, they're utilitarian in nature. However, they possess immense revenue opportunity here. So these are highly read messages. People look at them. They go back to look at them again. If they want to track shipments, they go over there to see where they can find their tracking numbers. But they possess this immense upsell and cross-sell opportunity, especially based on the brand. I've had a lot of clients over the years drive significant amounts of revenue just off these messages alone. And you can see the stats there. I used to consult with an IR 500 client who would drive 30% of their yearly email revenue off their order and shipping confirmation messages. It was absolutely amazing how much revenue they could drive off here. So why is it so important to optimize these? Well, they're often forgotten children. Here's an example of just an order and shipping confirmation message. Actually not a bad looking message as far as transactional messages go. Things are aligned. I've got call to actions to track my packages. It's cleanly laid out. I've got customer service info, but this is a beauty care product, right? The upsell cross-sell is immense here. It's a natural fit for them. So here's an example of two messages that, again, utilitarian nature, they're not the best looking messages in the world, but they have this upsell cross-sell opportunity. So the Williams-Sonoma example, purchase a griddle. I've got 4 product recommendations, 3 are griddle oriented. So we've got these, these shape builders or egg containers, a couple plastic spatulas. The 4th one doesn't really hit. Maybe people do buy 2 different types of griddles to compare side by side. And the one on the right, I bought some train tracks, going back to my train thing. So I've got a train recommendation for the tracks I bought, but it's also around the holiday season. They don't know if my children are boys, girls, mixed, who I'm really buying this for. So they have these different areas to upsell and cross-sell there, but 2 well-done messages. And you have the promotional area opportunity inside those messages. So it's really important that you try to take advantage of recommendations inside here. The other beauty of that is that you have purchase info on top of browse and email activity to build those recommendations off of. So everything I said, I showed you a couple examples of specific messaging, but anything from a product recommendation standpoint with intuitive recommendations, you can use in messaging. It doesn't have to be promotional messaging. Think about birthdays, lapse purchase, reorder campaigns. Really, the world is your oyster here, as long as you avoid some pitfalls. So just very quickly, I'm gonna show you a couple examples of what that could look like from a post-purchase side. So I'm buying some cards here. I've got some accessories there, and then the Crate and Barrel example. Right, they're not showing me the exact product I bought. I bought a champagne cork, but they've got this nice, beautifully branded message. But look at the recommendations. They're all around the same line as the champagne cork. So they're not pushing me couches and love seats and things like this and coffee tables. They're pushing me and recommending products that fit not only the price point, which was relatively low for the champagne cork, but other things because I may be a wine drinker. I may do this and that. So really nicely done job by Crate and Barrel on the recommendation side for that particular message. And finally, birthday messaging. So sure, birthday messages are a great opportunity. Here's an example of a website that actually takes it a step further. So you can see Connor's birthday, which is just around the corner, which it is. It's about a week and a half. And he is turning 3, and you'll see it's, hey, we have great gifts for 3-year-olds. And they've got 8 recommendations for gifts for 3-year-olds on their site. So doing a nice job of taking that data that I provided to them, so the name and the birthday, feeding that dynamically into the message, but then providing recommendations for 3-year-old birthday kids. So they did a great job from the birthday message standpoint here, but think about how, rather than just sending, hey, your birthday's coming up, here's 15% off XYZ, they're taking a step further to make this message as relevant as possible for me. And from a consumer, it engages immensely with me. So like everything else in life, there's always a but, and pitfalls are one of those things. So think about this when Mariel in just a minute here is talking about how to make messages aesthetically pleasing and how to do it from a strategic standpoint. Think about the recommendation side and how it can negatively impact you. So standalone emails, which from a recommendation side can be wildly successful. The great thing is they're mostly automated, very little creative needed for it. But here's 2 examples of ones that really miss the mark and the potential perils that they can have for you. So look at the Karma Loop example. You know, Greg, products recommended just for you, and I open up the message and I've got this hodgepodge of female products, male products, female skinny jeans. If anyone knows me, I don't really wear female skinny jeans. So, you know, it's really not my style. So the recommendations here just missed the mark. And on the overstock one, this is following up from a purchase I made. And it was a purchase I made for my wife, who was really just an iPhone clutch type thing. So she put a couple credit cards in there, and it removes the need for a purse. So they recommend stylus pens for me. And if anyone is familiar with iPhones, stylus pens do not work on iPhones, right? It's a different system. And then 2 of the recommendations down below that are jewelry recommendations. So you know, these are 2 messages that really missed the mark. Now think about this. If these are automated messages, or you're planning on just sending maybe a weekly or bi-weekly just recommendation message out to consumers in lieu of a batch and blast message, think about the subject line. You need to make sure those recommendations are relevant and intuitive to the consumer. Because if I get this message that says, Greg, products recommended just for you, and I open it and I get something that is not for me whatsoever, the next time I get that subject line, I'm not opening the message, because I already have this. It could be the most relevant message in the world, but I have this idea that, yeah, this is an automated message. It's not sending to me, and it's not relevant because last time you completely missed the mark by trying to sell me female skinny jeans. So think about from the standalone email perspective, this is creating a hindrance to me. It's not providing value for me. And then overall relevance. Overall relevance of the message as well. Going back to a different JCPenney's example, they had a couple message series in there. Now it's great because it's a relevant message. It's a browser abandonment message, but I never navigated to any sort of toy phones or play phones on the site. So rather than trying to force me or guide me down a path to purchase from relevant or similar products, that recommendation engine is turning up some things that really don't match what I was shopping for, what I clicked at on the website. So there's an opportunity where you want to force me down either train tracks or the train sets that I'm looking for. Now you're starting to distract me a little bit. And the HH Greg example, I love it because they're going out of business. I don't love the fact they're going out of business, but you can see the example here. I've got a $20 price point pair of headphones here. My recommendations are for other headphones, which are great, even if it's a higher price point, and a $1,500 TV. Now, this is distracting to the user. It doesn't take into account anything that user is doing, especially me, who just navigated to some headphones. So it doesn't do its job here. The goal is to get me to either purchase headphones, which I know I'm interested in because it's a cart abandonment message. I have a need for that at that point, but it also doesn't help me move me up in price point. So here's $20. We call out the free shipping over 35. Let me recommend some products that are 35 or above so you can get the free shipping and I get your average order value up. So think about the relevance. Make sure your recommendations, if you're saying it's just for me or saying things that we'll love, that it's also relevant to the individual consumer getting the email. So always pay attention to that. Ask yourself internally when you guys are meeting as a group, is it providing a value add to the message, or is it causing a distraction for the user that complicates the conversion standpoint? So always think about that and just assume consumers expect relevance. It is the nature of the game, and they're going to expect relevance and aesthetically pleasing emails even more so. So you can see the stat at the very top there about the number of consumers who will even pay more for that personalized experience. So I know I went through that somewhat quickly. I apologize for the technical hurdles there, but I'm going to turn over to Mario, who's going to compound and expand upon what I said here and show you how to really build beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, and strategic emails to your consumers as well. So Mario, take it away.
Greg, thank you so much. That was great. I learned a lot from what you just shared with us. And I do want to recommend that you maybe try some skinny jeans because those might look sweet on you, actually. So let me dive right in here. In this section of the presentation, I'm going to share with you some email design best practices so you're able to effectively execute the email strategies Greg has outlined. I will also go through some examples of good design ideas for your email campaigns. Email design is really a unique discipline that's distinct from web, print, and other forms of design. Both the technological constraints and advantages of the email medium require designers to adopt channel-specific approaches. So you really have to think about how your emails are going to be perceived on all sorts of different devices. We hear a lot about a mobile-first approach to email design, but even every mobile device is formatted slightly differently. So doing this correctly takes a lot of planning, and your designs need to be optimized. So designing the perfect email isn't just about finding the right images and colors for your message. It also includes everything from choosing a familiar from name to crafting the perfect subject line and ensuring your email does not look like spam. So now we're going to just go through some email design holistic best practices. In this section, I'm going to review how to use a style tile to create brand cohesion and identity, how to optimize your email capture strategy, the importance of providing an email to landing page symmetry, why you should include site navigation in your emails, the proper email format and size, strategies to persuade guests to actually open your emails, and how to make your email signature really stand out. And I'm going to cover what design best practices look like within some of the popular email series that Greg outlined earlier. Brand optimization is by far one of the most crucial email design best practices. From including your brand name in the from field and using an identifiable address to ensure that the to field carries the recipient's name and not their email address, every part of your email should be on brand. A great way to make sure that your emails are on brand is to create a style guide like the one you see here. A proper style guide will include brand fonts and weights, brand colors, and even a lot of other things that help define your brand, like your language, identity, images that your brand likes to use. A style guide like this should always be shared amongst all your partners, and especially the person or agency who is creating your email designs, because it's going to be really important that everything about your emails matches what people see on your website once they arrive. The designs you use to actually capture emails on your website will be integral to your success of your email campaigns. If you haven't heard, pop-up email captures will now be a source for penalty from Google in respect to SEO. So in order to curb this penalty, we recommend an email capture that slides down from the top of your website instead of one that pops up. It should be easy to close and also visibly accessible once it is closed. So if you look at the top here, you can see that the email capture is actually closed, but the guest could click on that promotions button in order to reactivate the email capture. If possible, providing a discount in exchange for the email address can also be really persuasive. Here you see 7%. They offer a variety of actual discounts and incentives for signing up for email on this site, which is really exciting. But the standard, I think, it is 10% off. You don't always have to offer a discount, but it really does help increase these email capture conversions. And most importantly, your email capture should always feel like a service to your guests as opposed to a one-sided request for information. Next, you have to really make sure that the design of your email matches the design of your website, and obviously your style guide is a great place to start with that. If your emails are not symmetric with your website, you can create this feeling of frustration for your guests. They might question, like, what, is this the right website? Did I get to the right place? They might get confused because they didn't understand how the email they just clicked through actually relates to the website that they landed on, and they're much less likely to purchase or even browse your site. These people will be highly likely to bounce if what they saw in their email doesn't explicitly match what they see when they land on your website. So you want to make sure your guest expectations are reiterated through the actual copy on this right-hand email here. You can see that both examples say basically endless summer here. We also see that the design feels similar. We have similar colors, similar fonts, weights, and we also have the same model shown. The last thing that's really important here is the shop now call to action in the email. You want to actually service the guest when they click the shop now and give them to a shoppable page. This seems really simple, but some calls to actions within emails can be a little bit confusing and vague. So you want to really serve whatever explicit need they outlined through the call to action. It's also a great design decision to include a navigation in your email so that guests can enter the buying process easily, even if they aren't really interested in the content specifically featured in the email. There are some obvious advantages to having these categories front and center in an email. Anytime you can direct potential purchasers to their specific goals rather than the homepage in general, you put them a lot closer to actually making a purchase, and you end up seeing a lot lower bounce rates. Navigation bars also mean that even specific emails which hold no appeal to a particular customer still have a chance of gaining clicks. So some collective best practices to use in respect to designing these emails are to place your logo either right above or to the left of your navigation for brand consistency. You want to make sure to only include 4 to 5 links because you don't want to overwhelm your guests. You want to make sure that the navigation links pretty directly reflect the navigation links that people see when they actually get to your website to, again, create this sense of consistency. And you also want to create your navigation links using HTML if ever possible. Many email platforms might block images automatically, and you don't want your categories to get lost. Another best practice is to make a mobile responsive email template, and more importantly than that is just to design your emails with a mobile first mindset. Email opens on smartphones have escalated to above 50%, so more than 50% of people who open emails are doing so on smartphones. And if we consider the people who don't use smartphones, actually 67% of total emails are opened on some sort of phone. So this is huge. You need to make sure that your emails are optimized for the people that are accessing them on really small devices. So a few best practices for doing that are to make sure you use a single column layout if the majority of your subscribers are third-party application users. The one column format is really easily legible, where if you have 2 or more columns, things tend to get condensed. Things might be too small to read and become crowded. You can also consider trying a hybrid approach to let your email look like responsive email in the third-party apps that don't support media queries. You should always design your emails to be between 320 and 480 pixel view. You can update your media queries while relying on a 320 pixel breakpoint to a 414 pixel breakpoint for the iPhone 6 Plus. You can keep the standard main body font type between 14 and 16 pixels and keep it about 22 to 24 for headlines. And you want to make sure that your call to action is as big as possible on mobile devices. Preferably, all your calls to action should span the width of the entire mobile device. Also, it's easy to overlook the importance of headers and pre-headers in your email, but they're extremely important in your highly competitive inbox. So the first thing you need to do is curate your from address. People are going to tend to open your email when they recognize who the email is from. So be sure to use your brand name as a from name and use an identifiable email address. You should personalize your subject lines when possible. So this means including your prospect's name within the subject line. Studies show that a personalized subject line delivers about a 26% higher unique open rate, which is quite important in this competitive space of your inbox. People get sometimes hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. And don't forget your preview text. This is where I see the most misses when I look at email designs. This is a line that appears below your subject line in the inbox. You want to try to limit it to 75 to 100 characters, and more importantly, the first 5 to 8 words are going to play a crucial role in holding the attention of readers and beckoning them to open the email. So you want to make sure to put your best foot forward there and don't, I mean, honestly, I often see like a URL there or like some call to action to look at the email like in a browser, and it just doesn't help anybody. And last best practice here is that your email signature should be like a business card and beyond for your email strategy. It's a very low cost and high return marketing tool, so you don't really want to miss out on using the most effective best practices for that space. So for your footer, you should use a maximum of 7 lines, which is the ideal size of a professional email signature. This should contain your key contact details, social media icons, and advertising message. One of the most important things to remember, though, is that this really needs to be on brand. If you're a company, all your email signatures should match, reflect your brand identity, etc. You don't really want people going rogue with their email signatures. So we've gotten through the best practices, and now I'm going to briefly cover some design best practices for a few of the email series Greg outlined earlier. So first, let's dig into those abandoned cart email best practices. Your abandoned cart emails should include products from your online shopping cart primarily, and then relevant cross-sell items secondarily. You can send these emails in a series of 3 to create the maximum impact, and following a persuasive content strategy will help create more conversions. Here you see a series of 3 abandoned cart emails from a pretty popular brand. The first should reach your guest immediately after their cart is abandoned. So as soon as it happens, they should get this email that basically says, oops, and gives them a reminder that they still have items in their cart. This design is really helpful for people who thought that they completed their purchase, but may have forgotten to make a last click or got distracted during their checkout. If the guest does not convert from your first email after 24 hours, you can send an email that leads with a customer service oriented content that reminds the guest why it's safe and preferable to buy from your brand as opposed to a competitor. And then after 72 hours, you should lead with an incentive or offer to persuade your guest to complete purchase. Some key design elements in this abandoned cart email include a really large, helpful title. In this case, Oops is friendly, helpful, and tells the story of the email content with without requiring the guest to spend time reading through the copy. It's also persuasive to create a sense of urgency by letting the guest know that their product may be low stock or may only be discounted for a limited period of time. And then last, you can show images of the products in the cart. This personalization helps the guest connect with their email and immediately recall their preference for your brand or site. It's important to set up the email so that clicks on these products lead back to the shopping cart and not actually to the product page, because you want to helpfully help people complete their purchase. So you don't want to send them on a path trying to figure out where they need to be to finish their checkout. The next email campaign we will cover is your email sign-up series. These are the emails that you should send to guests right after they sign up from a capture on your website. So we went over before just the email drop-down. If someone signs up for that, here are some best practices for those emails. Your newsletter sign-up email should be a series of 3 similar to your abandoned cart email series. You should avoid asking guests to double opt into these emails as it is an inconvenience to them as well as a disservice to yourself, as many people are unlikely to complete double opt-in. The content of your welcome email series should be helpful and be a friendly introduction to your brand and what you have to offer. And you should showcase clear calls to action within your welcome series emails to persuade guests to develop their relationship with your brand. So the case for not doing a double opt-in email is basically you want people to actually sign up for your email list. Double opt-in emails often get ignored within your inbox and can be a thorn in your side if you're actively trying to grow your email list. As you can see, the email circled here isn't very noticeable. The title's pretty odd. I probably would never click through that email to double opt-in. So this is a real disservice to this brand because I signed up intentionally and now I'm not going to be getting their emails, and I might even wonder why and think that they flaked. So the only time we recommend using a double opt-in is if you kind of sneakily collect someone's emails. For example, if you use something like Ajax to collect an email from the shopping cart before someone completes checkout, it would be appropriate in this case to ask guests to opt into your email service before you start sending them an unrequested welcome email series. So here's a really nice example of a welcome email series. The first email should reach your prospect's inbox immediately after they sign up, so they feel confident that they actually completed sign up on your site. The email should thank the guest, provide a discount code if you promised one, and have a call to action to shop. The simpler the design of this email, the better for your first communication. It's sort of just like, hey, you did a good job, you signed up. If you need a discount code, here it is. Next, you should send an email that introduces the guest to your brand. You can start by telling your brand story, highlighting what products or services set you apart from competitors, and then you should provide some valuable content to your guest. So this particular email provides recipes, but you can think of what content's relevant to your own brand so that people understand that if they open their email, you're providing them almost like with a service or a gift. This person might love these recipes and try them out. So you can do the same thing with a relevant content strategy. And lastly, you should ask your guests to join you on your social media platforms. The design of these emails should include social media content and have clear calls to action that link to your respective accounts. Product viewed emails are extremely helpful to guests and can be high converting if they follow the best practices that Greg outlined earlier. To get the most out of these emails, there are some design best practices you should also follow. First, show guests their viewed products and then suggested products. The products they actually viewed should be the focus of the email content. Next, you need to be very careful how many of these emails you send. If a guest comes to your site to browse a few times a day, it would be wildly inappropriate and creepy to send them an email for every product they viewed. So keep product viewed emails to a maximum of about 3 per week and make sure they do not reach a guest inbox if they are also added to an abandoned cart email series. And lastly, you should create a sense of urgency around these emails that makes guests want to come back to your website. So when you're designing a viewed product email, it is important to feature the most relevant products first. I've gotten emails that have listed 8 products, and that's just way too many and causes this sense of decision-making paralysis. So it's best to feature 1 or 2 products that the guests actually reviewed and they can relate to. And it's also best not to include the price of the products as a rule. Psychologically reminding people that they have to balance cost versus benefit, set your products up to appear to be of lower quality. Always include a call to action. It might be really obvious to us that if you click on the product, you can be redirected to your website. However, this is not as obvious to your prospects. And then lastly, the related products a guest might like should be given secondary priority in the visual hierarchy of the emails. You should introduce these products with some helpful copy that leads guests back into the buying process, like, did you see these products? We think you might like them. You should also use your powers of persuasion in these product viewed emails. In this case, reminding guests that the size that they've selected may sell out if they wait too long to buy can be really persuasive. The sense of urgency can be fostered in a few different ways as well. You could also offer a discount that expires within a set period of time for previously viewed products, or let your guests know that the products are a limited edition. The design of these emails should focus on the helpful message you are delivering to your guests and include calls to action that link directly back to the products in this case. The last email series we are going to cover are lifetime value emails. These emails help create lasting relationships with guests and make them loyal to your brand. The best lifetime value emails are personal, helpful, and give the guests opportunities they may not otherwise have if they were not active members of your brand ecosystem. So first, in order to encourage brand loyalty with your emails, you can design simple automated emails that appear to be from a real person. The format of these emails should be short, sweet, unformatted, and sent during business hours. You should probably delay these emails by about 15 minutes and always send them during a time that actually makes sense to receive an actual email. Use the prospect's name and invite them to reply directly to the email with questions or concerns. We find that these work extremely well. What makes them feel authentic is the encouragement to reply directly to the email. It makes it feel like you're emailing a person. Another personal email technique is to send emails from CEOs. These emails can be automated, but taking the time for your CEO to engage in 1 or 2 emails a week will probably be a more persuasive method. This particular email from David Marcus, president of PayPal, became viral and created some great PR for the brand. So it's these kind of emails that help guests feel special and personally connected. Another great lifetime value email is one that makes it easy for guests to reorder products that become depleted. The elements of this email should include a gentle reminder that the products may run out soon. This particular example isn't great because it doesn't have pictures or images of the actual products to reorder, when ideally it would, because people are going to relate to the image more quickly than they will to copy. And you can close these emails with some helpful customer service messaging to make sure the guests are able to order easily. And lastly, we want you to give your email subscribers early access to new product releases, sales, or exclusive content. These emails should highlight the fact that the promotion or release is only available to an elite group of people and detail the benefits the guest is getting through their connection with the brand. You should also include calls to action that reiterate the unique value of the promotion. If you want to take this kind of email to the next level, you can create a really compelling click-through rate by providing sort of like a gated area of your website, and these emails would have the password to open the gated area, so people really do feel like not everyone gets access to these particular deals. And to wrap up our email design best practices, I would really encourage you to put yourself in the mindset of your customer. All of your email design should be focused on the experience of your prospect. Your email design should be helpful and create a sense of delight around your brand, and the strategies that we covered today should help you nurture long-term relationships. Thanks a lot. Back to you, Jamie.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Mariel and Greg. That was fantastic. So now I'd like to open it up to the attendees for questions. Feel free to go ahead and just chat those through, and I will address them as they come through. So just taking a look here. Got a couple. Greg, this first question is for you. So you mentioned that intuitive product recommendations, a couple of times. We are sending generic recommendations such as top products and best sellers. Is that a bad strategy?
Great question, and way to pick up on the intuitive part to it. No, it's not a bad strategy. The cautionary tale I would always give you, and I gave a couple examples of that, is how you frame those recommendations up. So if you frame them as best sellers and frame them as most popular products, things like that, the strategy is just fine. People will know that. It's when you get to, hey, products recommended for you, and you get to give it a jazzy title, and they're more of these static recommendations, that's when you run the risk of running afoul with creating that disconnect with consumers. So just brand it in a way where consumers know it's not going to be specific to them, and it's going to be a good strategy for you. Thanks for the question.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to the person that submitted that. Mariel, and I guess this is actually a good question for Greg too, and this is the one, working for an email software platform. We hear this question all the time, so I'll go ahead and put it out there again. How frequently should I send emails?
Great question. That is really funny that you're always asked that at Bronto. We hear it a lot here too. And my advice would be to actually look at your own data and see what works. Every brand's a little bit different. Best practice and what we see probably work most of the time is to start with a more aggressive email strategy, possibly emailing a few times a week, and then start to taper off over time. So maybe the first week that someone signs up, you send an email every 24 hours, and then after that you send a weekly email for a month or so. Then you move to bi-weekly, which I think you're fine to indefinitely send a bi-weekly email. Greg, do you have any other insights about that you probably know more about it than me?
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in. That's the $1 million question, and I don't think it's one that can really be answered. To Mariel's point, certainly look at your own audience and how they're engaging with you. So I've worked with clients that would send 3 emails a day, and I've worked with clients that would send 1 email a week, and they've both been successful in their own right. I would say a couple times a week is pretty par for the course, but it doesn't mean 3 times a day is a bad thing, but you certainly need to look at your audience. The one thing you can certainly do to help figure that out is do a little analysis into your unsubscribe. So, hey, we send an email to XYZ, our unsubscribe rate is 0.1. That accounts for X number of people. And then do an analysis or create a segment of people that unsubscribe from that, and maybe do it over a week or two and figure out, are they non-purchasers that have been signed up for 6 months that are unsubscribing, or has that increase been from purchasers who are recent purchasers and now they've just had it because you're over mailing them? So if you could figure out a dollar value for the per unsubscribe basis, follow the trends there, and that'll generally point you to a good direction of, hey, 5 times is too many, but 3 times kind of a sweet spot there. So a little bit of work, but it's easily doable, and you can figure out from a cost perspective.
Awesome. Thanks for addressing the $1 million question, both of you. Next one I've got, let's see, we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So, this is a good one. Mariel, how can I add emojis to my email subject lines?
Oh, that's a great idea. People love emojis. On your Android app, you can do it using your Android app. But my recommendation is to use your favorite emoji software and just copy the emoji and paste it into your subject line. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Though before you send that email, definitely send it to yourself first, because not all of them render properly and they render a little different for all your emails. So definitely try and stick with the base emojis. Don't go with those wily emojis that you don't see very frequently, because a lot of people may not actually be able to see them and it'll come in as text. So, but do recommend using those where appropriate. I think that especially younger generations really relate to the emojis in your subject line.
Awesome. Very helpful. Okay, one more question. And this is for both of you. What is the best time of day to send an email?
Do you want to start, Muriel, or you want me to jump in?
I have my standard, but I feel like maybe you have more insight than me.
I'm going to guess we're probably pretty similar here. I'll jump in and then feel free to chime in if you have something else beyond that. So this is probably the $500,000 question. I don't think there's a right time. I think a lot of it's going to depend on who your consumer base is. So you look at someone, say in their 30s, or someone like myself in the very upper 30s, pushing 40, or have a couple small kids at home. Sending me an email at 6 o'clock in the evening is worthless for you, because I'm with my kids, I'm playing, I'm giving them a bath, I'm reading them books. I don't get to my email until 9 o'clock or before I get home from work. So you kind of have this dead period there. Now, if your target audience is millennial based, and I say millennials is a pretty big group there, I hate using it, but skews younger, they don't have those responsibilities, and your times are going to shift there. So you got to look at your audience a little bit. You're going to have to do some testing to figure out which time is best. And I could probably find you a stat for every time being the best there. So look at, do an analysis of who your audience is, and that should dictate you a little bit. My gut is going to tell you during the working day. So probably between the 10 and 2 o'clock spot's going to be really good for you. And my gut's going to tell you also the evenings are probably going to be good for you as well. But I'm sure you have some thoughts as well, Muriel.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that obviously depends where in the country they're in. It's good to send people emails at certain times based on their time zone. I've seen a lot of emails work really well between like 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. For people to go to work. But I think the best answer is it really is dependent on your audience. So test your own emails, see what you can do. Weekends, I think, are notoriously not that great. Emails get read, but they don't always get acted upon. So stick with weekdays if you're trying to make the bucks, and just look at your own data to make the best decision.
Great, Muriel and Greg, thank you so much. And we are at time now. If you had a question that we didn't get to, you've got Greg and Muriel's emails right in front of you, so feel free to reach out to them. And we'll also, like I said, be sending out the recording with the slides, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Muriel and Greg, and thank you, BVXL and Bronto.
Thanks,
Have a great day, everyone.